I was 24 years old. I had the cushiest job on the planet. I was making 6 figures a year, and I left all of it behind to go all in on entrepreneurship. Should you do the same? I have no idea, to be honest. I have no idea about your life circumstances, but in this video, I am going to be going through my story of how I left my cushy corporate job at 24 years old, moved to Eastern Europe on a one-way ticket, and I'm going to attempt to point you in the right direction. A lot of people have the entrepreneurial itch, and it needs to be scratched. And what I'll say is this: the regret is worse than the failure. You'll never regret going up to the girl and talking to her at the bar. You will regret not doing it. You'll never regret going for it and failing it in business, but you will regret not going for it. So let's flash back to 2011. I had graduated college early. I had an economics degree, and I got a job at a company called Hitachi Data Systems, now known as Hitachi Vantara, I think, something like that. And it was a great job. So out of school, 21 years old, making $56,000 a year with the ability to basically work as much overtime as I wanted. Easily could take my earnings $70,000, $75,000 a year. And that is actually what I made for my first couple of years out of college when I was working at Hitachi. I actually really liked the job. It was intense. I got to learn a lot. It was high paced. So I actually really enjoyed that job. But then I got passed over for some promotions that I thought I had earned. I was the youngest person they had ever hired, and I was going for some other opportunities, which might have been a little bit out of my pay scale, but they were promoting based on seniority. And maybe you've been through something like this before, where someone, you're the most qualified person, but because someone's been there longer or somebody plays the political game a little bit better, you don't get the job or you don't get the raise or whatever it's going to be. And so that really kind of dissuades you, especially if you're younger and you're at a point where you have your whole career ahead of you. You're thinking, I don't want to wait 5 years for something I feel ready for now. So I jumped ship and I went to a Hitachi client and I went to work at a government think tank. I lost any and all motivation to ever work a corporate job again, but it was the cushiest thing in the world. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Once I got integrated, I was then an admin. So at Hitachi, I responded to clients' requests and needs. So somebody had a server outage, data storage outage, whatever it might be, they would call in and I would help them solve the problem. So that was then flipped, where my only job was to manage the data systems, this backend storage system, and that was it. So unless there was a problem or someone needed something done, there was very little to do. And to be honest, there was pretty much nothing to do with this job. So after a certain amount of time, my schedule looked something like this. I would come into work 30 minutes late, 9:30, and I would go check my email. That was about it. By 10:15, 10:30, I would be up on the roof overlooking beautiful Santa Monica Beach with my friend at the company, and we would sit up there and have coffee, usually for 45 minutes to an hour. 11:30, I'd go back downstairs, check some emails, respond to a few things, maybe have a meeting or two. Around 12 or 12:30, I would take my hour and a half to 2 hour lunch, and I'd go to the gym, or I would go for a run on the beach. Then in the afternoon, get back 2 o'clock, just hang out, kind of pretend to look busy. And then my boss, he was usually leaving around 4 o'clock. So once he was gone, by about 4:30, I was out the door. So I was working 9:30 to 4:30, and I really wasn't working. By the way, I was also working on my side hustle businesses for this entire day, if I was actually at the desk, which I wasn't very often, as you can see. And I was just, it was so cushy. Why would I ever leave that? But I wasn't feeling satisfied, even though the money was good and the job was good. I was bored out of my mind, and I was young. I wanted to use my mind. I wanted to have adventures. I did not want to just stay in that cubicle all day, every day at that company. Even though it was the cushiest job in the world, I wasn't happy. And that's because I was looking around at some of my fellow employees, all of whom were much older than me. And this was a government think tank, so pensions, they were cushy. Like that retirement plan was really good. And everybody was just saying all the time, oh, I'm just waiting to retire and collect that pension or whatever it was called. It wasn't a pension at the time. I felt like I was waiting to die. And then in November 2015, I took my first trip to Colombia. I had already traveled to Eastern Europe at that point. I'd been to Wrocław, Poland. I'd been to Prague, Czech Republic, a few other countries in Europe. And then earlier in 2015, I took a 2-week trip to Budapest, Hungary, and I loved it. Then in November of 2015, I went to Colombia, and I met a couple friends there who were online friends, we could say, and they were running online businesses. And online business might be a strong word to put their business, because they were basically freelance writing for like $800 a month. But those guys, they were so fucking happy. They were loving their life, like everything about it. They were having so much fun. They, weren't working very much, but they were so much happier and so much fuller of life than I was. I felt like I was waiting to die. I felt like those guys were living. Point number 3, it was a difficult pill for me to swallow about the 9 to 5. And what I mean is, you have to ask for permission for vacation. Like, you want to go home for the holidays and you need an extra day off, or you want to work remote one day and you've always got to ask somebody. And then if you're really in the wrong corporation, they've got to go get approval from somebody else. And it's just this giant mess. And you feel like you a lot of times can't make a difference. Either you're being passed up for opportunities that you feel like you're ready for. You understand that your job means nothing. And this is a perfect example, was this job at the think tank where I just sat all day and managed stuff until something broke, but it didn't make a difference in anyone's life worldwide. The entire point of the company, the think tank, was to do stupid studies that had absolutely no bearing on the world and the environment. Like, I'm actually going to go right now here on my tablet. I'm going to go pull up the recent news at this think tank. This is the kind of bullshit they were doing. New tool shows data on unsheltered populations in Los Angeles. Like, what is the study doing? The study's not curing homelessness in Los Angeles. I promise you that. An affordable diarrhea treatment could save thousands of children's lives. I mean, okay, we don't want any kids to die from diarrhea. Oh, here we go. This is relevant to one of my companies. As the special military operation that was supposed to seize Kiev in a matter of days has stalled, it is as much an economic problem as it is a military problem. Military spending on the war is on pace to account for almost 1/3 of Russia's budget this year. Why did a think tank need to spend $200,000 for someone to say that quote? That's what I mean. It's not that things don't happen in the world and that there's not ways to improve the world. It was just a bunch of spinning in circles about data and studies. It made no impact on any of the issues that actually came up. Point number 4 is what I talked about when this video first started, which was the regret. You'll never regret going up to the pretty girl and talking to her. You will regret not doing it. Same thing with entrepreneurship. I could have sat in that cubicle for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, it would have ended up being 40, 45 years in the cubicle. Or I could try. And I tried, I took a shot at it. I bought a one-way ticket, went all in on online business, and it worked out. But I would have really regretted if I was just still sitting in that cubicle. It's been almost 10 years in business, and I can't imagine the regret if I'd sat and stewed in that cubicle for another decade almost with all these ideas churning in my mind, and I'd never actually had the courage simply to go for it. So I'd ask you this. What's the worst thing that's going to happen if you try to become an entrepreneur and you try to make it on your own and you fail? Like, what's the worst that happens? More than likely, you go back to the same job you were at before, which maybe you weren't happy, but you know what? You tried, and you can try something again. But just sitting there thinking about what could be instead of actually doing it is what's going to lead to you regretting it later in life. Now, if you don't have the spirit to do this, and you like your job and you're comfortable and you have no desire to go into business for yourself, then by all means, stay in the job. There's nothing wrong with working a job, and I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of very valuable jobs out there that people need to do so that society can function. There's no shame whatsoever in working a 9 to 5. The only shame is if you want to try your hand at business, you owe it to yourself to try. And if you don't, then you're going to end up being the old person in the cubicle sitting there waiting for my pension, waiting for retirement. Well, we could do a whole nother video about retirement and, waiting your whole life and saving your whole life so that you can try to enjoy it in your last couple of years after you've been beaten down your entire life. That's a whole nother discussion about whether retirement's kind of a scam or not. But I think waiting until the end of your life to do everything you wanted is a way to make you regret the first part of your life. Point number 5 that I want to bring up is that I actually had a supportive family when I took this leap. So I actually remember the call. I think it was around like December 14th or 17th, 2015. I had just gotten back from Colombia and I was going home to my family in a couple of days for the Christmas holidays. And I got on the phone and I called my mom and dad. And I said, hey, mom and dad, we're going to have a discussion when I come home. I don't really want to talk about this anymore now. Just think about it. But I'm going to be leaving my corporate job and going all in on my blog, literally my blog at the time, my dating blog. And I basically said, I would like you to think about this for the next couple of days. When I get home, I'll be happy to answer any questions, but this is like where we're going to leave it for now. And to my parents' credit, totally supportive. Might have had their doubts. If so, they didn't really share it with me, and fully supported that journey and me taking that risk, and were happy for me. Having the supportive family made all the difference in the world, but I also know that on the flip side, it's very possible that you have people who are going to pull you back into the bucket like a crab. Crabs in a bucket mentality of, oh, I've worked a corporate job my whole life and my life's not that bad, so you shouldn't take that risk. You shouldn't try it. And they'll say things like, oh, it's so risky to start a business, think about whatever. They'll come up with a million reasons to discourage you from trying your hand at business, but that's part of the game. People are going to doubt you. And then of course, when you find success years later, they'll say, oh, I never had any doubt that you were going to make it. But the reality is most people are not capable of starting a business or running a business, and they are going to try to pull you back down into that bucket with them. Crabs in a bucket mentality. It's much easier for them to say, no, it's, online business is a scam. Entrepreneurship is all BS and nobody can do it because I never tried. It protects their ego. It's a normal human reaction, but you have to be able to fight past that. So now you're probably wondering, now that we let all this stuff up to it, and I think it's pretty clear by now, you have to figure out what you want to do in life. I can't tell you. I can't sit here and say like, yes, you should go be a business owner. I can't. You have to look at your situation and you have to say, is this something I want to do? And if you have an urge to do so, you will regret it if you don't. Life is short. Talking about my parents earlier, my mom passed away almost a year ago now. It'll be a year here in like 2 weeks. And she was 56 years old. Sorry, 15. Wasn't 56 years old, would have been 59 years old. Man, I'm getting all my dates mixed up. She passed away stage 4 cancer, and that happened really, really fast. It was pretty much April 2022 diagnosed, and then June 2023, she was gone. And that was right after my daughter, her first granddaughter, was born, and she only got a few months with her, which sucks. So life's short, and you never know what's coming around the corner. So if you have that desire, you should go after it, because you never know when things could be over faster than you think. What did I do next? Here's the next part of the journey. I began to build on what I already had. So my original blog, which was This Blog Will Get Me in Trouble, was a dating blog. And I had started writing anonymously because I was personally not very good with girls and I was struggling. Like I said, I was an engineer, so I was a typical engineer. I wasn't very good with this stuff. So I started seeing some success though, and I started documenting what was working, what wasn't, and what I was doing. And I started just writing anonymously. Always had a knack for writing. That helped. So people started following. Before I knew it, I was making a few $100s a month from affiliate sales, ads, selling my own ebook, and then that continued to expand. And so I went all in on that, and I made myself a rule, which was that I would post something every day to that blog. And that was my initial thing I did, is every day I'd wake up and I'd write a blog post, or I'd do a video, I'd do a podcast, and I said, I'm going to publish something on this blog every day for a year. And I kind of figured if I didn't at that point make it, I didn't deserve to make it. It wasn't good enough. And then of course, everything continued to domino from there. So I went from the blog, I started building a network of successful niche sites in the dating and the supplement industry. I learned all about SEO and how to build a good website that could rank in Google. I then started the olive oil company, which you see right here. And that was from a reader of my blog. So Cello Olive. And then from there, I moved to Ukraine, I got married, I bought property, and I started Hire UA, that company there. And now that's a recruiting firm, best one in the world. If you ask me, we'll find you someone, whoever you need in 5 days. And now I'm building a software platform as well, Teamity. So everything has just stacked on itself. And as an entrepreneur, every year you get better, you build another skill, you improve something, and it just stacks upon itself so that the next thing is easier. And there's always challenge. There's a great quote I love by cyclist Greg LeMond, which is that it never gets easier, you just go faster. So if you're climbing the mountain on your bike, it's never going to get easier. It's always going to hurt. You're always going to suffer, but you're going faster. And business is very much the same way. There's always going to be another hurdle, another challenge to overcome, but it gets, I'm kind of going against the quote here, but it gets easier. A challenge that would have decimated me and stressed me to the brink in 2017 is now just barely a blip in the road. It's like a tiny speed bump, not a giant mountain. But I know that around the next corner in 2025, there will be something that appears to be a mountain, but I'll get over it. And then next time, that same mountain will not be anything near as difficult as it is to overcome. To kind of just wrap this up, like there's so much value in normal jobs. So you can have that stability, and you can make the argument, oh, is a 9-to-5 really safe? A lot of people on the internet trying to sell you a course will say, oh, a 9-to-5 isn't safe at all. You could get fired at any point. Yes, of course, that's the case. I see why people want to do it. And not, business is not for everybody. There's a lot of ups and downs. It takes a lot of a certain kind of insanity to actually be an entrepreneur and be a business owner. If you don't have the itch, then by all means, enjoy your corporate jobs. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are absolutely hell. Find a good one. Find a boss you like, a company you resonate with, and go with it. To me, it's insane. How could I ever sit here? I have employees. Like, I can't sit here and say like, oh, jobs are so bad and anyone who works a job should be ashamed of themselves. Like, that's such crap. Companies need people. It's just how it is. So there's no shame whatsoever in working a job. Just find a good one. It is tricky to find a good one. I will tell you this. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone, but if it is inside of you, like, you owe it to yourself to go for it. I always just kind of ask myself, if I was sitting on my deathbed, like, what would it be? Would I have regretted going for it and failing? No, because I would have just gone back to the job. I would have found another job in the industry. I would have moved back to California, and that would have been that. And I wouldn't have regretted it. And then I could have said, like, I tried, I went for it, and it didn't work out, and that's okay. Just like you talked to the girl at the bar and she rejected you and it didn't work out. You tried. It's okay. I hope you like this video. I hope it has provided some insight for those of you who are looking to be entrepreneurs. I hope if you already are an entrepreneur that it gave you some insight into the journey and the ups and the downs, and hopefully you got some value of that. And I hope it also taught you, of course, to be valuing your employees and the team and the company that you're building around. For more content like this about building a business, entrepreneurship, traveling, and much more, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Check out the links down below for more information about my companies if you are a business owner looking for some great help in your business. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.